Yeah, dear. Right, hello. Yeah, it's me again. And I look like I've just woken up. I haven't actually just woken up. It's just the way my hair is at the moment, where I'm growing it out a bit. It's just like it just goes all over the place. You know, unless I put like hair gel or oil or something on it, it's just gonna look like it's just I've just woken up all the time. Not really anything much to do about it, you know. I can't be bothered anyway. So let me just get on with the sandwiches first, right? Because I just want to tell you how to make an improvement on a BLT, bacon, lettuce and tomato sandwich. How do you improve it? It's one of the most popular sandwiches in the world, right? There's been competitions, you know, and people voting on the top sandwiches in the whole world. And a lot of the time, bacon, lettuce and tomato has come up as the top sandwich. As far as I remember, I mean, things could have changed nowadays, I suppose. It used to be one of the top sandwiches anyway. Fairly sure of that. So how do you improve on it? Now, just think of this, right? This is how I worked it out. I thought bacon and tomato, meh. What goes better with with bacon than tomato? What sounds better? Bacon and egg. That sounds good, doesn't it? Bacon and egg. So now the problem there is that you're getting the bacon and egg, which are both animal products, right? And in order to make a decent sandwich, you really want, you know, to make it a bit healthy so you can feel good about yourself. And you want something that is a bit vegetable-y. You know, like tomato. You've got rid of the tomato. You could still put the lettuce in, but bacon, egg, lettuce. That doesn't sound right, does it? Egg and lettuce, meh, not really so much. It's not really. It doesn't sound like it's you know, going to do any real work for you, does it? It just like you're doing the work for it. So just bear with me now. So I'm working on this sandwich improvement for bacon, lettuce and tomato. I've got the bacon. I've swapped the egg. I've swapped the tomato for the egg. And now I need something to take the place of the tomato and the lettuce that's going to go with the egg and the bacon. Avocado. So how do you put avocado in a sandwich? It's like, so I thought about that for a little while and I come up with a solution. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, you probably already worked it out. It was just, I used a teaspoon and I open up the avocado. You have to use a nice, ripe, fresh avocado. I mean, you always do. Any avocado that's not just perfectly ripe you just might as well throw it away. Or at least ripen it up if it's not ripe, you know. So anyway, you want a nice avocado that's just perfectly ripe, you know. Sometimes, you know, I like the one I just had, you do find a little bit of brown bits in there near the skin, and you have to scoop them out and check that you're not getting brown bits. But anyway, you use a nice large teaspoon and scoop the flesh out so that you're getting a strip of a consistent sort of thickness. I try to aim for about 3 or 4 millimeters thick, so that it'll just like sit nicely on your bit of bread. And what I'll do, the way I just done this, right, is I know it's nice to see, but I'm going to describe it for you. So you've got your 2 slices of bread there. I didn't put any butter on them or anything. I just started frying the bacon. Now, pieces of bacon these are, so that what I want is mouth-sized pieces of bacon. If you're making a bacon sandwich, right, with egg and avocado, you don't want to have to be struggling to break off bits of bacon that are like in long, like big pieces, you know, and pulling them all out and then having a bit of bacon flopping down with a bit of mayonnaise and egg yolk on it, you know, just making your beard all look unattractive and dripping down your t-shirt and stuff, you know. It's not a good look. So cut them up into bite-sized pieces before you put them in the sandwich. So you cook your bacon. Your bacon's cooking. You ain't got time to waste. You know, you got your bread there. You're not going to worry about butter because everything's got fat in it. You're having bacon. Avocado's got loads of fat. Eggs got loads of fat. You don't really need anything else. A tiny little bit of mayonnaise, maybe just to help it all stick together. But just a tiny little bit. And I go for the low-fat mayonnaise. And I probably shouldn't even do that, you know. It'd be just perfectly fine without the mayonnaise. So don't even bother with the mayonnaise. Unless you're like, you know, like you've got like a sort of thing for mayonnaise, you know. So anyway, so you make these nice thin slices or medium-sized thick slices, like about 3 or 4 millimeters slices of ripe avocado with a teaspoon, a big fat teaspoon, or you could probably use a butter knife or something. So then you can layer them out in your sandwich and put like the bacon on top of that, or the bacon on the other side, on the other piece of bread. This is what I done. Put the bacon on the other piece of bread, and then fried an egg in the leftovers, bits and pieces that left from the bacon that are fried. You know, like the little bits that are left behind, the little granules and stuff, and all the flavour. So I tried to sort of push all that into the area where I'm going to cook the egg, and so plop the egg onto it, crack the egg open, stick it on there so that the white and it absorbs and connects and like binds up all the little bits of bacon sort of leftovers from the frying, so it collects all that flavour. And then like I put it on in a medium to hot temperature to start with, and turn it right down to like medium to low. Give it a minute or two to sort of like stabilize and sort of so that I can easily move the egg around. Once I can easily move it around, then I'll just give it a quick flip for another 20 seconds or so to sort of help solidify the yolk a little bit. You don't want it too runny. You don't want it solid though. You want it a bit runny. So you've got to try and judge it so that it's like half runny and half cooked, the yolk. So that when you stick it in the sandwich and you're like on top of the bacon, then you can just squirt a little tiny bit of mayonnaise on the avocado and just put your hands underneath each slice of bread and just gradually like push them together so that, you know, you get a full sandwich, and then lay it out, and it's ready to eat then. And this, to me, it just totally kicks ass. It's much more satisfying than a bacon and lettuce tomato. You know, I've just had one. It's just like I had it for breakfast. Oh fucking hell! Is it that time already? See, the clock says 2:43. God dear, in the afternoon. And it's like I've only just had my breakfast. That's doing pretty good, you know. I mean, lowering my eating window, trying to lower it down. So eating, it must have been, I'm guessing around 2 o'clock that I ate, which is good. That's what time I want to eat my breakfast, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, and I just feel great. You know, it's like my digestion feels really good. You know, I didn't start drinking until that time. You know, I didn't start drinking until I was starting to cook my breakfast. Okay, so let's get on to MGTOW then, because I expect you're all waiting for the MGTOW stuff. Now I've got the sandwich stuff over with. And it was gluten-free bread, but I'm going off gluten-free bread, by the way. It's just like, I realise it's got loads of vegetable oil and sugar in it. I mean, it's nice as a sort of transition sort of food if you're trying to get off gluten and wheat. It can sort of help you over it, but I think, you know, it's not like an ongoing thing. Something that you can use as a transition, like a stepping stone, to get yourself off gluten. But I wouldn't recommend it as a long-term thing, or as a long-term substitute for wheat. You know, just shouldn't eat grains at all. The only thing I would do with grains, I think, is to make alcohol out of them, which is what people originally started doing with them before they made bread and started eating them. they used to make alcohol. That's like, we've got evidence that that was going on 3,000 years before anyone started eating grains. Okay, so MGTOW. The funny thing happened the other day. I was on here, and my kind of like ex-girlfriend, like Eve, and her username is Vonk Evie, and you know, I met her in the street. I don't have anything to do with her. We've not really had much to do with each other for nearly 20 years now. But I just bumped into her in the street like a few years ago. And, you know, we just got talking. I went back to her flat and we had a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something and a chat. And we swapped like your YouTube names and that. So, so she just turned up. She turns up now and again on my channel. Not very often, but it was funny because she showed up, like just showed her face a couple of weeks ago, and Snowy noticed. Snowy is I really like, and he does some like amusing videos, and he's got some really interesting opinions about stuff, and you know, I like to have him around. He's a great guy, and he probably obviously didn't know that Eve was my ex. And he suggested that, you know, there's this, I saw this English woman or a woman from the UK that's like, she seems like she would be good for you, you know. Oh, dear. It seems really funny to me because, like, you know, that's my ex, like. I don't know. I think he felt a bit embarrassed, you know. He's a bit shy, or in some ways Snowy, and he deleted his comments as if he'd made a terrible mistake, you know. And he's like, I didn't see it like a mistake at all. I just thought it was funny. There's no blame or anything. Ah, dear. Anyway, but one of the things he was talking about, it reminded me of MGTOW because I was talking to Eve about how I met Snowy. And it was through like me doing MGTOW videos on YouTube. And in some ways, I suppose like Eve was kind of partly responsible for me to go in MGTOW. So anyway, so it was funny me talking to her about it, you know. Probably maybe Snowy just didn't want any get involved in any kind of weird stuff, you know, like, which I don't blame him for at all. That's fine, you know. Okay, so anyway, what's happened with my updates about MGTOW? What I've been thinking about MGTOW. Now, when I think about a lot of the MGTOW videos that got me interested in it in the first place, there's some great guys. I'm not going to mention the names. If you go into MGTOW, I'm sure you can find all the guys there. Maybe it's changed since I used to watch those videos. I don't want to give any names out for any, you know, all sorts of reasons. I don't want people just thinking that I know a lot about MGTOW and that. I've got my own opinions about it. Okay, so right, let's get clear on this. A lot of these videos have got some great advice, and I'm not knocking the advice, you know, about how to deal with women. There's all kinds of advice, you know, all kinds of different MGTOWs, all kinds of advice. And most of that advice is being like very wary of women, you know, be extra wary of women. They can be very dangerous. And people have been saying this for centuries, millennia, you know. It's not a new thing, you know. Women are dangerous, you know. It's like they're like, And a lot of it is to do with the way the world works. You know, people aren't seeing the world as it really is, and they've got these stupid ideas. And one of the reasons I'm making this video about MGTOW is because it relates to the left and right side brains. The way that the left brain builds maps of reality and makes categories and maps everything out in terms of categories and hierarchies and functions and stuff, you know. But what it ends up then with is a map. And what happens with most people is they end up staying in the left brain and left brain consciousness, and treating the world as though it was exactly the same as the map, and not really spending any time in their right brain, in their consciousness, in their waking consciousness, in order to see how things really are, right? Which is what the right brain does, is deal with how things really are, regardless of any conceptualization or categorization, which would come in terms of building words around reality, categorizing things and turning them into words so they can be processed into coherent like sentences, so that you can convey information in a very convenient way through through speaking and, you know, the written word as well. Now, you know, both sides are inherently useful for various different things, and we do a lot better if we've got them in balance, it seems. It's just that what's tend to happen, I think, this is my theory about it, with the written word, when we've started bringing the written word into everyday life, which has only been happening in the last 100 years or so, you know, the last 100 years, everybody's just basically been totally flooded with the written word. I mean, it was around before that, for a long time before that, but it didn't necessarily play much part in people's lives. It's only in the last 100 years or so where it's just everywhere, all over the world, just everywhere's flooded with it. And what's happened in that last 100 years is we've started creating a man-made mass extinction event, right? Now, okay, I'm getting off the subject. I want to return to something that I have, that I'm not just repeating, that I've repeated in loads of other videos. So, when we're looking at MGTOW, it's what we've got to look at is how did it come about? What is our history? Let's get some perspective on it, right? Now, I don't really know anything. I kind of like, I've been told things, I was taught things at school, you know, I've read books, I've seen stuff on the internet, I've checked things out for myself on the, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm just like Socrates. I don't really know anything. I'm probably the wisest man on the planet, you know. I know nothing. It's all just patchwork, guesswork, and experimentation. I'm just experimenting, really, just to see what happens, because what else is there to do? And I'm just brutally honest about it, you know. I don't claim to know anything. It's all guesswork as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So what I was told, and I've got no reason to disbelieve this, it seems quite plausible. Thousands of years ago, this is what I was taught in school, thousands of years ago, society was mainly set up in terms of communities built up of females. You know, people like tribes were built in like were matriarchal, and they were run by women. The grown-ups were all women, right? Apart from the one person who was the king, and that was one man, and he was only king for a year, or maybe only 7 months of the year, while he was like allowed to impregnate as lots of women during that year, and then he would be sacrificed, right? Now, I don't know this. It's difficult to find out this for sure. So much history has been destroyed and rewritten and overwritten and been turned into propaganda, and just edited and edited and edited, so that there's basically we haven't got a clue. It's really hard to understand what really happened, and it doesn't matter how many books you've got; they're all corrupt. They're manifestly, definitely all corrupt, as far as I can tell. They may contain elements of truth in them, for sure. There's bound to be lots of elements of truth. There's no smoke without fire, but it seems that most of it is extremely misleading. So anyway, the idea I've got in my head that I had from a child is that women had these sort of like communities where they would, like, all the women would live together, like kind of in a way for protection. They didn't want to be like raped and stuff. They protected themselves. Men weren't allowed in there. Only children. They would have their children. I mean, you can see traces of this still if you go back to the history we have of those people that lived. Was it in Crete? Somewhere in Greece. Those warrior people. The thing they made the film about. It was called 300. That film. Those warrior people, and all the men had to become warriors when they were children, and just like. It was like horrible, and but they were the best warriors in the world at the time, and they just fought off thousands and thousands of like soldiers, just 300 of them. No, not Trojan. I just can't remember what the name of those people are. I'm sure you can remember. Anyway, I'm sure you know who I mean. Ah, dear. Anyway, so those people, had a similar kind of like setup where the young men were cast out, and they had to become warriors, and go through real hardships. But over the rest of Europe and stuff, and the rest of the world, it was probably a lot more. There were various types of competitions that men would have to enter into, and whoever won would become king and would have the sex with the women, and then they would be sacrificed. They would be killed at the end of it. After 7 months or a year. Apparently, according to history. What happened is that these kings started like finding ways to increase their stay in power for 7 years, because 7 months didn't seem like long enough. It seemed like too short a period. When you got small tribes and the best of the people are being killed every year, whoever was most successful winning the race or fighting a battle or or duel or something. Anyway, what seems to have happened is that men just got to the point they sort of got together and started thinking about it and thought, well, this is really terrible, isn't it? None of us get to have sex apart from one out of maybe like 100 men. Only one gets to have sex for a few months, and then they get killed. The women are just like being fucking unnecessarily brutal and difficult and causing us like to. So what I suspect is that's how we developed like homosexual genes. So many men are like homosexuals, and women as well. Lesbians, because they've been for a lot of our history, we was kept separate. Women were in separate communities, and men had to go and live out in the wild. Women kept gardens and protected them, and once their boys reached a certain age of like, they were starting to reach manhood, they would be just cast out and have to fend for themselves and join up with the other men. Similar to how lions work, you know. Lions have a basically identical pattern to that. You know, the women will always stay in a group, and the young men, once they get to sexual maturity, they get cast out. They have to go and fend for themselves. And only the ones that are the most powerful, they have like a, you know, a fight or some sort of contest every so often, and only the most powerful male will earn the right to mate with the females. So this, and then what's happened, right, is the way I understand it, and a lot of this, it's not like I'm basing this on actual history that I've read. I don't trust actual history. I'm trying to read between the lines and understand it from like an intuitive point of view, what feels right in my guts. So if that was going on, then a group of men would bound to have got together and thought, well, why don't we just take over? You know, we'll make loads of weapons. What they've probably done, right? This makes a lot of sense, you know, and it all fits with history and that and the timelines. They worked out if they burned, because they were like living out in the sticks, so they're making fires to keep warm. You know, they haven't got nice warm female bodies to hold on to and stay warm. They have to make fires. They don't want to look gay, you know. They're not going to huddle up to each other too much, so they have to make fires, you know, to preserve their masculinity, you know. So they make these fires, and they've got rocks around the fires, and you know, they made a nice hot fire one day, and they've noticed that some of these rocks have melted and there's metal, you know, like this sort of like liquidy solidified stuff that like in little pools on the edges of the fire where the rocks were. So they started experimenting and discovered copper, you know, and eventually bronze. So then what they do is they start making swords and weapons and stuff, like much better than anything that's gone before, and then decide to overrun one of the communities of women, you know, just get a load of men get together and take over a community and force all the women to sort of have sex with all the men. Instead of just one man, you know, for a year or for 7 years, all 100 of them all get to have wives, right? And it kind of works. You know, the men are so much like, they feel a lot better. Their hormones are working better. You know, all the women, a lot of the women are quite happy with it. You know, their hormones are working better. They're getting much more regular sex from, you know. It's not just once or every couple of months or every few years. It's like 3 or 4 times a week, you know. They're much happier. And so it starts spreading. They have loads of children, and after like a few decades go by, and they start thinking, well, we need more land, and we've got too many children. So I know there's loads of tribes just over there along that area, and we can just go and take over their women, kill the men, and you know, everyone will have loads of, all the men will have loads of wives, and they can have more children, and they've got new land, gardens and stuff, and it just spreads. And then it spreads over the world. The whole, you know, eventually everywhere just gets taken over by war and weapons, and it all changes. Instead of having like men and women living separately, and the best of us in various ways being the only people that mate, now everyone mates, and now there's like loads of like, there's too many people. It's like, what I think is happening is that nature has got like a sort of 30% rule going on, where it's only about 30% of the offspring that are actually set up to reproduce. So if everyone tries to reproduce, you know, it doesn't work. You end up with like defunct sort of like, you know, not very decent sort of people. You know, the gene pool starts getting thinned out. If you let only the best people, the most like strongest, healthiest people, only they mate, then it keeps the gene pool strong. If you start letting everybody mate, then the whole gene pool just starts getting weaker and weaker. You know, and disease starts getting more. You know, it's like this is like it goes against the laws of nature. You know, nature always, everyone has to fight for their right to be like, you know, like to have sex and to reproduce. It's like it's not just a given. It doesn't just come just naturally to everyone or everything. You have to work for it. You have to fight for it. So when you sort of like create this situation where people haven't got to fight for it anymore, it just all just falls in their lap. Then nature's not working. Nature's not looking after us anymore. We're not like on the right side of the fence, you know. Okay, how do we relate this to MGTOW? See, the thing is, because of what's happened in our history, if you get it in perspective, what's happened, right? You have to sort of admit to the fact that it's all a lot more complicated than it should be. You know, we're not in a natural situation. It's too fucking complicated. You know, and there are no easy answers. So you have to go. You have to like go up to a higher level. Now, this is where all the spiritual stuff comes in, where you know. Not just the spiritual stuff, but but intuition, using your right brain, seeing things how they really are, and then like using your language center in your brain correctly, making sure that you're going over into the right brain consciousness, like the dream world, and then back into the real world, although I don't think of it as the real world. It's more like the dream world, the abstract world. The world of language is the abstract world. So in a lot of the way people understand dreaming and dreams, you know, they're really thinking what they mean is an abstract world. Well, that's how people in what we term reality, people that like watch TV and, you know, have jobs and stuff, they're living in their left brain, which is the abstract brain, right? So that they can use language more efficiently. They become like dominated in the left brain, because then it makes it easier to use language and communicate with other people. But then you are living in a kind of like map reality, and you're not dealing with the actual real world, which is what you get from looking at through the right brain. This is why you get people with autism that don't really want to talk to most people, because you all like living in an abstract kind of dreamlike reality. But from your point of view, mainstream's point of view, it's right brain people seem like they are the dream people. But as far as we're concerned, we are the ones living in reality. We're the ones seeing the big picture. And it's just the difficulty we have is translating what we see into words that you can understand. You know, that's almost impossible. And this is one of the things I'm working on. It's just not like, this is like a hobby. I'm doing it, it's part of the work, but I have to treat it like a hobby, you know, and otherwise I would take it too seriously, because at the end of the day, it does seem to be extremely important. And it's like, what we're in terms of like keeping the people alive and the world going properly. You know, left brain people seem to be destroying the world, because as it says in the Bible, my people will die for lack of knowledge. They don't understand the difference between the left and right brains, and they don't understand that they're being deceived by people and beings that are like predominantly, totally, exclusively left-brained. And those people are detached from reality. They have a parasitical relationship with the right brain people. I'm more or less quoting from this book, you know, this guy here. He's an Oxford professor, who's been studying the left and right brains and stuff. And, you know, I feel like in some ways, I'm more advanced than this guy. Because when I read his stuff, when I read bits, and I haven't read all the book yet because I do find it a bit difficult to read. You know, it's hard work. It's like not most people won't be able to read this book. It's too difficult to read, unfortunately. You know, this is a real, you know, real academic person. You know, a very left brain person, but is looking at the right brain and trying to analyze it from a left brain perspective. And so he does a good job, as good as a job as an academic can probably do. You know, I'm not an academic, you know, I don't class myself as an academic, although I do quite a lot of reading. Mainly I read fiction, you know, because the way I understand it, people write a lot of fiction who couldn't be able to write factual books like this. And even if they did, they wouldn't get read. I mean, how many people have read this book compared to people who have read Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials, you know? I'm sure a lot more people have read Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials than have read this guy. You know, it's going to be like 20 to 1 or 30 to 1 or 100 to 1 or something like that. And as in terms of like understanding, it's much. Philip Pullman's books are a much easier read, and they do cover a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same information, but in a much more accessible way. You know, even though the problem with it is the downside is that people are reading it as fiction and tend to pass it off as fiction and not really consider that it's actually based on reality, which essentially most fiction is based on reality. And it's often only written as fiction because it won't get published if it was published as fact. Okay, where's the MGTOW thing gone? Wasn't I talking about MGTOW? Okay. So what I noticed, right, is that what's happening, there are things that you people are not looking at, like. And I associate these as like a little group of things. Like we have the written word, we're not supposed to have it. It's not compatible with nature, right? What I just talked about, the fact that our history is probably not based on living in partnerships, like permanent partnerships. Now, some birds typically do this. Not all birds. You know, chickens, for example. You have a cockerel, and a cockerel has a harem of hens. I don't know if that's the correct word, but, you know, it's basically a harem with lots of hens that he would, and that's why you have cockfights, because a cockerel will fight any other cockerels, just like a lion will have a pride of lionesses, you know. That's often the main way that nature works. Hippopotamuses, you know, a male hippo could have 50 up to 200 females that he's like servicing. And all the other male hippos, they just have to sort of lump it, you know. They're off on their own. They have to live on their own, you know. They're like, they never get the chance to have sex. In nature, the vast majority of males never get to have sex. You know, so what humans have done, we've tried to sort of like beat nature. We're trying to make it so that everyone can have sex, because there's lots of hormonal benefits to having sex. You tend to, you know, probably live, on average, live longer, get less ill, you've got more energy, you're more confident, you're happier, you know. There's loads of benefits. The problem is that when everybody gets loads of benefits, it's like it raises the standards. So, and everybody starts getting used to that, and then that becomes the new normal. So everybody might feel better for a few years, and then it all just sinks back down, and people feel the same again. And then, like, they remember feeling better, and they have to develop new ways of feeling better, and it becomes an addiction of like progress. We have to keep seeking progress, and that what happens then is we keep driving progress forward to the point we start wiping out like life forms on the planet. We're trying to maximize efficiency in all these different areas, and what we do is we upset the balance of the food chain, which is what we've done, and that's why we're in a man-made mass extinction event. Now, we've got too many people on the planet, so that's one of the reasons why, in terms of MGTOW, there's a good reason to not be like searching for females. So in that sense, the MGTOW system is like just conforming with nature. There's too many people. We don't need more people, you know. we want to avoid it, so they're doing the right thing. And women being more difficult to please, that's another sign of there being, you know, they've got too many choices. There's too many men to choose from. There's too many opportunities. They can't make their minds up, and that's unattractive. They seem fickle and like, you know, not like they're the earthy. They haven't got the earthy quality that they ought to have. You know, they're more like mud. You know, they've got too many choices. They've become too fickle and too sort of like sloppy and messy. You know, they can't make their minds up. You know, and that's for men. That's unattractive. You know, that's another reason why the MGTOW thing, to me, it's like another thing. Yeah, I need to use the toilet, but I'm going to carry on talking because I can get words out quicker if I need to do a wee. Right. Let me just get this right. Oh yeah, right. It's kind of like this thing about, you know, people have known this people have been writing about it since the Greek times, you know, to over 2,000 years ago. What you think is how your life will turn up. Everything that turns up in your life is due to how you think. So if you end up with a woman that's like a letdown and is a traitor and like really causes you loads of shit, it's because you wasn't thinking clearly. You know, I've been doing some research, you know, modern, up-to-date research and stuff. And you people that are in your left brain and you can't understand what I'm saying, you just probably won't like what I'm saying anyway. And that's that you basically have to take responsibility for things. Which the left people stuck in the left brain, they hate that, because when they haven't got access to the right brain, taking responsibility is virtually impossible. You know, whereas if you're in the right brain, it comes like second nature. You do it automatically. So it's a way of basically sounding them out. You know, if they're not prepared to take responsibility, then they've been seduced by the left brain's certainty, because the left brain loves certainty, it loves power, but it hates responsibility. Right? They're such arseholes, these people, you know. And it's most people like that in their left brain, and they just become real arseholes. And it's like they're not like they're exactly doing it on purpose. It's a lack of knowledge, it's conditioning, it's training. It's what our school system does to people. It trains them to stay locked in the left brain. And then the way out of it, this is like locked into a state of dependency and seeking power and like a slave-like mentality, and it's really depressing. And so people like drugs, they take drugs to make them feel better, like sugar, caffeine, alcohol, all kinds of drugs. You know, all the prescription medicines, painkillers, all kinds of things. People take drugs and they act in all kinds of strange ways to sort of make themselves feel better. It's so depressing. And there's a simple solution. You know, it just means going into the right brain and letting the right brain take care of things and like balance all the misleading perceptions of the left brain map that it's built. Compare them and like join them up with the right brain so that you know those discrepancies in the map can be ironed out and sorted out. you know, and this is like an ongoing process. You need, ideally, you know, the left brain has to allow itself to be scrutinized by the right brain and corrected, and so that it can continually update stuff. It's a bit like a virus protection, or like a firewall. You need to do this. If people stay in the left brain, they become like vampires, you know, like they become like Agent Smiths and stuff, you know. They're self-referencing, so they use the map as if it was reality, you know, where the map is like their own man-made map. It's like this is why I've got the problem with the written word. The written word is always and essentially a map. It's a map. It's not the real thing. That's what the written word is. It's like little maps of things. And they're not the real thing. And we don't really need the map. And actually the map, because people can make false maps and they can make mistakes when they make maps. And that can lead to all kinds of problems, you know. And people can deliberately sabotage maps. You know, maps can be destroyed. Maps can be lost. It's much better to deal with the real thing, the real reality. Then animals don't have maps, you know. The rest of nature, the rest of the whole universe doesn't have maps, and we've got maps in terms of the written word, and we're already just in the space of in less than a blink of an eye in terms of evolutionary time. We're already straight away trying to, you know, starting to destroy the world and make it uninhabitable. It's like I'm just glad that you people have got me here to, like, as like a little alarm bell to sort of tell you, look, you people are really like totally lost it. You know, you need to realize the written word is your enemy. You know, it's the bad guy. It's Agent Smith. It's the devil. Hi, Johnny. I hope you're enjoying your new job. You know, I know you've been at it for a few months now. You know, me making my videos, that's my job. I'm working for me. I make these videos for me. I'm not here for you, Johnny. I'm glad you come and watch and say hello. You're generally quite respectful and a nice guy. So I like that. And you're quite funny as well. So that's a good bonus as well. But I'm making these videos just for me. Did you see my video the other day? I wanted you to be like the shepherd in my farm that I'm gonna have in a few years, in a few months maybe, in a short while. I'm going to have a farm, and I want you to come and look after the sheep. But you can have someone to come and teach you how to do it. So is that okay? You can come and become. I know you've got a job now, but wouldn't you rather live on a nice, organic, holistic farm? You're enjoying your job. Okay, but you'd have better food. Okay, I'm not going to try and convince you. You know, you ought to know. I trust your intuition. I'm sure you know what's best for you. I'm just saying the option's there. It will be very soon. And I might just come up and say to you, look, you come and stay on my farm and look after my sheep. Otherwise, I won't talk to you anymore, or something like that, you know. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the MGTOW thing. Ah dear. So some of the things I found out about has made me think about MGTOW differently. I mean, when I was interested in MGTOW, I very quickly got to the conclusion that MGTOW is like a stepping stone. It's like the Hermetic path. You know, it's just another way of talking about the Hermetic path. You know, and there's not really much point in talking about it in a different way. Or at least, at the very least, you should understand the Hermetic path as well as the MGTOW, so that you can see like a parallel throughout history. So it gives you a much more useful perspective on what's going on. You know, if you understand that people hundreds of years ago were going MGTOW, but they were just calling it being like a hermit, you know, then it becomes a lot more understandable, and it's just, you can fit into that. You can call it, you can be not just a MGTOW, but you can be a hermit as well. So you're two things, and you've got a lineage going back to history in like hundreds or thousands of years. You know, whereas if you just stick to thinking, oh, I'm just a MGTOW, then it's a modern thing. It's like a fad. You know, it's like it's one-dimensional. If you're a MGTOW and a hermit, and you understand what these things mean, then it's like you're much more three-dimensional. You're more like a real person. So it's like you fleshing out things instead of just being the skeleton. The skeleton, you're the skeleton and the flesh. You know, you're fleshing it out. You know, you got your feet on the ground more. Oh, I'm pleased to hear it, Johnny. You know, I like to grow. I've got a strange kind of habit. I grow my hair about every 2 years. I just grow it until it gets too long, and then just cut it all off again, and then just let it grow. So I only cut my hair about once every 2 years. It saves money, you see. So more money that I've got to spend on beer. I get an extra few beers out of it every 2 years, so it's worth it, you know. I'm glad you showed up, Johnny. I missed you the last few days when I was making videos, when you weren't there. I had to talk to my ex, you know, my ex-girlfriend. She was on there, you know. She gets a bit tiresome. I don't mind seeing her now and again. It's nice to see her, but, you know, I don't want to talk to her. It's like, it would be nice if other people would come on and be horrible to her and put her in her place for me. Because I feel a bit, you know, I don't really feel like doing it. It would be like at old times, you know. So I just try and be polite, you know. What can you do, you know? Oh, well. Yeah. Why didn't you come and turn up 40 minutes ago, John? I'm getting tired now of making videos. It's gone on for low. I can't expect people to just watch videos of me and you chatting. I can't tell you what. I'm going to come onto one of your videos and we'll carry on talking, okay? In the chat section. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye. Oh, thumb up my videos and subscribe and yeah, things like that. Yeah. Cheers.